It's time for engine power, and we're taking you to a national annual event where the cars are not the stars, but the engine is. It's the Holley LS Fest. Plus, we start a two-part budget LS 4.8 build of our own, from the Boneyard to the Dyno.
Hi, and welcome to our new performance series, Engine Power. The name says it all, and today our show is all about America's favorite performance engine. Where on one hand, you can now get a supercharged LSA crate engine like this if you got deep pockets.
But that's not me. My pockets only have holes in them. But now we can build a pretty powerful and affordable version of the LS, and today we're going to show you guys how for thousands of dollars less. But now, just to get you in the mood, we're going to head on over to Kentucky, where this new hot GM motor is what everybody's running.
In fact, you can't play at this party without an LS-powered vehicle. Holley's 4th annual LS Fest drew its biggest crowd since the beginning. A testament to the prominence of GM's hottest engine ever.
It's an amazing engine, and people here prove it.
The event is a playground of power and performance, from the quarter-mile drag strip to the autocross and beyond. Quarts show, mostly go. It's a showcase of potential for LS build-ups, LS swaps, and aftermarket innovations. For some, it's also an official stop on the LSX Championship Drag Racing Series. Judd Massingill from the School of Automotive Machinists races his '99 Camaro in the all-motor class.
The students have worked hard, and I had messed up real bad driving, and we won the LSX Championship the last 4 years.
Judd's got all the crew help and horsepower he needs to win. His 433 cubic inch LSX makes over 1,000 horses.
We need to definitely try and win this thing.
The school's COPO Camaro may not have enough power for this class, but Brian Massingill wants to run it again before it goes to the shop for upgrades.
It's a lot more on me than it is the tune in the car, and I've got to cut a good light, put a fender on the guy, and just stay there.
In this test and tune run, Judd lays down an 838 at 163 miles an hour.
Spun a little bit, but made it to the finish line. Good start.
Judd was number 2 qualifier with an 831, although losing a close one in the semifinals. Meanwhile, Brian and his crowd-pleasing COPO made some impressive passes too. One of the festival highlights is the autocross shootout, the top 5 competitors of the weekend. Usually it's a 2-man race with either Brian Finch or Kyle Tucker taking the trophy. This time, though, a dark horse Miata with an LS7 and driven by Johnny Jakowski finessed its way to the winner's circle.
I've been coming here for the last 3 years, and every time came up just a little short. Last year we came in 3rd, did one run and broke right away, and it was heartbreaking, but I was glad I was able to get into the top 5.
LS Fest participants get their money's worth. In addition to racing opportunities, they could put their ride on the rollers for free dyno runs. The owner of this gorgeous Restomod 72 truck wanted to try out his freshly planted LS3.
If I can get in the 4 range, low 4s, mid 4s, anywhere in there, I'll be ecstatic. All righty, go ahead.
381 at the rear wheels, that's nothing to be ashamed of.
Got some shift points to change and some other things to work on now, but hey, you got to start somewhere.
What's also cool about the LS Fest is all the cool, creative engine swaps you see out here. Now, can you beat this? An LS engine between the fenders of a classic 69 AMX.
Actually, I can beat that, Joe. How about with a 69 Corvair that used to have a small engine in the trunk? Now, this is a little more like it, a blown 6-liter that puts down over 600 horsepower to the tires.
Well, how about an LS-powered rat rod truck? Or this Honda hatchback drift car with a blown LSX 454. The LS engine is now an icon of American muscle. The ever-growing LS Fest proves it. And later on, for the first time ever, we get to play at this LS Power Party ourselves.
We're back in the shop, but we will return to the LS Fest a little later on. For now, it's time for us to start our low buck LS project, and it all has to start with an affordable yet reliable foundation. After 17 years of production, the boneyards now have a bounty of reusable LS cores. And while the 5.7 LS1s and the 6 liters are still pretty pricey at around $2 grand, you can get by much cheaper with one of the smaller iron block truck engines. We got this cast iron 4.8 long block with aluminum heads for just $275. And we got really lucky because the cool packs were still on the valve covers, which will save us a ton of money. Now these little guys are so reliable that a lot of guys take them straight out of the junkyard and drop it right into their project vehicle. But today, we want to build some impressive horsepower as well as end up with a daily driver. So the first order of business is going to be a thorough inspection. And so far, everything looks pretty good. But I tell you what looks great is that casting number right there, 243. That lets us know we got an LS 6-cylinder head with smaller combustion chambers for more compression as well as bigger valves.
When we pulled the camshaft out, we noticed we had an issue with the #1 cylinder's intake lobe. Now, while LSs don't have many issues, one of the most common is lifter failure. Check this out. This lifter broke at the base, causing that piece to get lodged between the roller and the cam lobe, destroying both. Here's a little tip. Make sure to remove it from the bottom so you don't damage the lifter bore.
We pulled one of the piston and rod assemblies mainly to inspect the skirts, and while they're not pretty, that's pretty much signs of normal wear. Plus, since it spins over freely and there's no signs of scarring in the cylinder walls, we feel confident enough to reinstall this piston and rod and start our build from here. After some ATF on the cylinder wall, John can tap her on in. With some lube on the original bearings, we reinstall the rod cap and torque the boat to 15 foot-pounds. And another 75 degrees past that.
Now compared to the factory cam, our new bump stick from Comp has 32 degrees more duration on the intake side and 43 degrees of duration on the exhaust, measured at 50 thousandths. Now the intake lift has 100 thousandths more inch of lift and the exhaust has 119. Combined with those LS6 heads, this little 4.8 should put out some impressive numbers. Since the timing gear teeth are in good shape, we're only going to replace the tensioner and the chain itself that we got from Summit Racing.
A new oil pump's going on next, and there is a right way to install it. With the pump disassembled, loosely bolt the housing to the block and lightly tighten it. The crank-driven gear is the first to go on, followed by the outer ring rotor gear. Place 3 15/10,000 shims between the pump drive and the gear in a triangular pattern. Now place 3 more shims, the same thickness, between the outer ring and the pump housing. Tighten the pump housing bolts in a cross pattern, remove the shims, and install the pump cover. Now the pump is aligned with the crank and no premature wear will result in the pump housing.
Now the original timing chain cover goes on. And after laying down some masking tape, that's how you get those perfect lines. But it annoys everybody in the shop. We'll give our block a coat of Dupli-Color Chevy red before we button up the bottom end. We're back and we've almost got this short block completely done. Now one thing I want to go over with you guys is when you put the balancer on, loosen the timing chain cover bolts just a little bit. This will help center the seal on the hub, keep everything from burning up. Now all we got to do is flip it over and we're ready to go at the bottom end.
Like the balancer, we're also reusing the windage tray and oil pump pickup. Then after laying down a new gasket, the stock oil pan goes on, now with a coat of Dupli-Color cast aluminum paint. We'll hold it in place with new ARP bolts.
We can now move on to tearing down these LS6 heads, starting with the locks and springs, then the valves, which are going to go out to the machine shop for refacing. And finally, remove the seals. Next, the heads will get their first bath of the day. And once they're dry, it's into the blast cabinet where we can get them down to bare metal. Back in our shop, we want to thoroughly sand each deck surface. Now first with 80 grit sandpaper dry, then using some WD-40, I'll go over them again with some 1500 grit. Now this is the way I like to do it, because when you get done and you've got that solid haze of gray over there, if you can't see anything underneath it, you're flat, you don't have to worry about milling it. Now the heads can go back into the washer for a final cleaning. Our new JRI jet washer does the job quickly, but in your home shop, you'll probably have to rely on a lot of brake cleaner and even more elbow grease.
While the heads are still washing, let's get started on another budget upgrade. Now, Summit Racing has LS-specific valve train kits available. Ours came with springs that are good to 600-inch lift, seals, locks, and a full rocker arm trunnion upgrade. Now, when you buy all these components together as a kit, you're going to save quite a bit of money. This setup costs us $300. Now, for you do-it-yourselfers, they also include a rocker arm bearing installation tool in the kit that you can use in a vise at home and do it yourself. First, we remove the OE bearings from the factory rocker by mounting the vise fixture to the vise, which is held in place by magnets. Using the black end cap, tighten the vise to press out the old bearings. The replacement has writing on the side, which faces outward on the rocker body. Using the mandrel and alignment sleeve, press it in. Now insert the new rocker pivot, place another bearing on the other side, and using the washer, press the assembly together.
Our LS6 heads are clean and dry, which means we can start getting them ready for assembly. We got our valves back from the machine shop as well, and resurfacing not only promotes sealing, but it'll maximize horsepower, so this was $30 well spent. Now we can brush on some machinist dye, add some lapping compound, and lap in each valve to fine-tune the seating surfaces. And that's where all the heat's dissipated. It's a good idea to check each valve face to make sure you're good and concentric. Be sure to mark them as they are now cylinder specific. We're also smoothing out the rough edges on the throat of each intake. You see, the combination of bead blasting, lapping, and cartridge row touch-up could be good for an extra 10 CFM of airflow.
Now we've added over 100 thousandths of lift on this cam upgrade. Now the factory spring was only good to about 490. It simply will not take the upgrade. Now the new spring that we're going to be running is not only taller, but has a higher spring rate. Now that's going to keep us from floating the valves at higher RPM. Now to verify the spring pressure, I'll go ahead and put one of the springs in our compressor and first measure it at its installed height, which is 1'8". Then I can subtract 600 thousandths of lift from that and check the spring's open pressure, which is right on the money at 325. We lubed all the valves before dropping them in. Now the new seals from our kit are designed to double as locators. Now we can install the new springs and keep them in place with the new locks.
Before the heads, we have to install this new set of roller lifters. Now, staying within our budget, we only paid $139 for these, complete with lifter trays at Summit Racing. Of course, we're using new gaskets in this project, and now we can drop on the heads, and we'll use a set of ARP head bolts to cinch them down. Then, after dropping in the original push rods, we can install those upgraded rocker arms. Well, I think we got ourselves a pretty decent budget long block here.
We're gonna find out on the dyno.
Speaking of budget, now counting the 4.8 we got from the boneyard and those few new parts we added, we're only out about $1,500, not too shabby. Now, next time we'll finish up the top end of this thing before we take it in the dyno and flog it using 2 different carburetors plus fuel injection, all in our quest for very affordable, respectable engine power.
It's the engine power guys' turn to play at Holley's LS Fest. And the toy? A Nissan 240 SX. We'll see what kind of quarter-mile numbers they get from this lightweight LS-powered rocket.
Perfect.
We're back at Holley's LS Fest one more time. For 4 years, we've watched while other people got to play and have fun with their LS-powered toys. Well, that's about to change. All thanks to a 95 Nissan 240 SX we modified just for moments like this. The engine has a stroked LS2 bottom end and a fully machined fuel-injected LS3 top end. The car was intended for road racing, but by swapping the rear tires for a pair of Mickey Thompson drag radials, we're strip-friendly in no time.
This will hopefully give us a little more traction on the drag strip, which we need because the car's a little overpowered.
Oh, one more thing, we got to determine who drives it. Nothing like democracy. Besides, Mike worked hard on this project and wanted to be first down the strip with it. So the first ever pass for this project Nissan at 11:16 at 123 miles an hour.
Yeah, I am pumped. This car is awesome.
Then, after another low 11 pass, the best run of the day. Into the 10s at 125 miles an hour. Hey, not too bad for a pump gas street car.
125, man.
Yeah, not bad.
Cooking.
If you plan on building an LS engine, here's a great foundation to start with. Summit Racing offers these fully seasoned cast iron LS blocks that come shipped to you with a fully finished 4030 bore. Do you plan on building a stroker? Well, these blocks come ready for a 4-inch stroke using an H-beam rod. Now, 6-bolt mains are standards. Summit Racing includes the cam bearings, water jacket plugs, and they even paint it black. The cost, $750.
As we showed you today, the LS engine is becoming the most popular engine swap. Now, oftentimes, clearance issues can arise when trying to run a full-length header between tight frame rails or when you're trying to run a bulky factory motor mount. Now, these Block Hugger LS1 headers from Hooker are actually designed to give you that clearance you need. Now, they're available in either 1 5/8 primaries or 1 3/4, and they're considered universal because they exit parallel to the oil pan rail. Now, you can get them either painted, ceramic coated, or polished stainless steel, and you can get yours at summitracing.com.
When you're out on the racetrack, safety is the #1 concern. And the part you want to protect most, of course, is, well, your noggin. That's what Impact Racing has in mind with its line of racing helmets. This is Impact's Air Draft helmet with a low-profile Venturi cowl induction system that supplies fresh air to the driver through whisper channels. Now, the cheek pads are interchangeable for a perfect fit, and the polycarbonate shield is 3-way adjustable. Now, the whole thing is made of lightweight Kevlar tri-weave. They're available in 4 colors, this being flat black, and you can get yours at Summit Racing for about $800.
This Holley oil pan is one of the most popular on today's market. Now, just like everything, there's room for improvement. So Holley went back to the drawing board and designed this retrofit LS pan with extra clearance, and it shows. Now, the pan is designed to work with all the OEM components, has a 6.2 oil quart capacity with a factory filter, and is designed to work with GM car and truck chassis. Now, the kit comes with the oil pickup, the oil passage crossover, drain plug, oil filter adapter, and hardware. The cost, right at $400. Well, that's it for today's Engine Power. Make sure you come by and see us next week.